Good afternoon, everybody. I know for some I have Australia where it's morning and the UK where it's later in the evening. So in California and West Coast people. So thank you everybody for being here. We appreciate it greatly. Today we're going to talk about all the new stuff in the Nik Collection. I touched on a couple things in last month's webinar, or 2 months ago, since we were doing Nik, black and white using silver effects and stuff, but we're going to get a little more into it today. So I'm going to just give you a little rundown of what's new. So there are several new features. The biggest improvement, I think, is that you can now use Photoshop masks in Nik 8, which is really cool, and I'm going to show you that in the first project. We also have a new panel. It doesn't stay docked down in that lower left corner anymore. It now opens as a plugin, and you can dock it yourself, and I'll show you that in a second. Let's see. And as you'll see in our first project, once you've created masks in Photoshop, whether you've used them to make Photoshop adjustments or not, you have the option to bring those masks into Nik 8 and use them to selectively make adjustments. We still have the option of control points, but sometimes a mask just gives you that extra bit of accuracy. And in addition to the control points that we've had, they've also added another one, a color mask control point, which I will show you. Silver Effects 8 also received some new updates. I touched on those, like I said, in the last webinar. They've streamlined the UI to eliminate everything from the right-hand panel. So now it looks like color effects and analog effects. The only thing they have on the right is the film types, which you would want to start with before you start with the other filters so that it works, the way you would want it to. So you would add a film type if you want to use one, and then you'll just start adding filters or presets, just like with it in the color effects or analog effects. And they've also added some new presets in Silver Effects. The other thing in Silver Effects is now in the lower left, you can have a reference image, which is your original color image if you're trying to target a certain color when you're doing your black and whites. And another new feature is called Send to Layer back to Photoshop. So say you've done some work and you want to save that kind of as a snapshot, like this point in time. You don't have to save it now as a separate file. You can there's a button that I'll show you called Send as Layer, and that's going to send it back to Photoshop as a separate layer, and it will have the visibility turned off. So it's it's there if you need it or want it, and then you just continue working. It doesn't actually go back to Photoshop. It just sends all that information over there. So there's a lot of cool stuff. So let's jump in. Go back to my Photoshop. All right, so we're going to start with this photo. This is from Boston quite a few years ago. I was on a camera club trip. So what I want to do here is I'm going to create masks of different areas that I can use in Nik. Now, if I wanted to, I could also use these masks here, of course, but I want to edit this in Viveza and do my editing in Nik. So I thought to illustrate this and how this all works for you, well, I'm going to start by creating masks. I'm going to duplicate my layer, and we're going to do a select subject. And it does a pretty good job there. Let's make sure we got all of our buildings selected. Yeah, that looks pretty good. And it didn't select the trees, which is great because we don't want the trees. We just want the buildings. So I'm on that layer already. So all I'm going to do is hit the Add a Layer Mask button down here at the bottom. And there we have it. So our sky is masked, the trees are masked, just our buildings would be showing. Now, so that we know which layer is which when we get into Nik, you definitely want to rename these layers. So I'm going to say buildings. So I know that's the one that's got the mask for the buildings. So we're going to go back here and do another Control J. Now I want to select my sky. So we can rename that now. And we are going to speed this up, I'm going to use this mask to create my sky mask. So I'm going to select it, hold down the Alt or Option key, and drag it to this layer. But now we want to invert it because we want the sky to be white and the buildings to be black, and then we'll deal with the trees. So we just want to do a Control or Command I. So now right at this point, the sky and the trees are selected. So I'm just going to take my brush. My foreground color is black. Let me grab a round brush and make sure I'm at 100% up here. And I'm just going to paint back over the trees. Yes, it is. It's on the mask. Dave's like, it's not doing nothing. Yes, it is. Gotta look at the mask. So now we have that painted back in. So now that layer is just for our sky. So we're going to do one more. Control J. I'm going to use this one again. Hold down my Alt key, drag it down, and we're going to invert it. And oops, inverted the wrong one. Make sure I select that one. Control I. Or Command I, and now we'll paint the sky because we want the trees to be showing here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Just let me make my brush bigger. So I want to do this just quick, so we're just going to go over that. Make sure we get all of it covered. Yeah, man. Trying to get those little 2 points there in the middle. All right, there we go. So then we want to name this one trees. So now I have 3 layers with 3 different masks. So now we're going to go into our Nik panel. So as I mentioned, this is the old, the old Nik 7 panel. I still have my 7 installed for now, just in case I need to do comparisons. But now what we want to do is, if you look over here on this panel, I've got this is the new logo. Okay. So I have it docked here. So I'm going to delete it so you can see how that will work. So what you'll do is, because you won't already have that there, is you're going to go up to plugins, not filters. You're going to go to plugins and go to Nik Collection 8. And if you click on preferences, it's going to open that panel and you'll see it docked it over here. If it may not automatically dock it, that it is doing it because I've had it there. But if it doesn't, let's move that over. You can take this, grab on preferences, and just kind of drag this till you see that blue square in the background. And now it's docked there. And now all you have to do is click it to reopen this panel. Not the how, but this part's on here. I mentioned it, but the actual Dave's like, is that in the notes? It's in there to do this, but if it's floating like that, you'll just follow what I just showed you to do that. And here's all of the different things. And if you hover over them, you can see they're changing: color effects, silver effects, analog, etc. Display cover image is just like their advertising image. I don't need to see that all the time. Typically now when we go into the plugin, you want to do a combination, like you want the effect to apply to everything. But there are times that you may just want to do an active layer if you just want to apply an effect to one layer. So you have that option right here now. And apply favorites and last edit. You could either apply them in Photoshop or there. I haven't tried playing with that one yet. So we're going to leave it in Nik. And then when we want to go into one of these things, so like right now, I'm using all these masks. I want them to be able to access them in Nik. So I'm going to choose the all masks. So then I'm going to choose my Viveza, which is right here. So now it's going to launch it, and then you'll see how we can bring in our masks. What the heck does that mean? Oy. Let's try that again. I love when things don't work. It worked fine the other day. And it won't let me get out of it either. I'm frozen. All right, let's do a Control-Delete. Sometimes just doing that will unlock things. Let's close the Nik and try this again. All right. Do our Nik. That's the first time I've had that happen since I've been working with this. So, okay, it's just one of those little hiccups. So now we are in Nik Viveza, and we're going to start working on different areas of our image. So basically, like I said, the mask will make it much easier because I want to do an adjustment to all of the buildings. So instead of trying to do control points and all that kind of stuff, this can be a lot easier. So as always, you end up with global adjustments first. So you have everything over here, but we don't want to do anything globally. We want to use the different masks. So we're going to go to our local adjustments, which is your regular control point, the control lines, the polygonal. This is the new color masking one. Next to that, we have a new little icon that says import masks when you hover over it. So you want to click on that. And there's our 3 layered masks. So I'm going to start with the buildings. So now, just like with any other control point, we're going to come down below that point, and these are the settings that we're going to use for that area of the photo. All right, so let me flip my page here. Okay, so now we're going to go into our adjustments. So we're going to do some brightness, contrast, saturation, structure, crisp things up a bit. Then we're going to come down to selective tones, and I want the highlights to come down. Midtones a little brighter. And shadows. So we're going to open just a teeny bit. All right. And so that's our settings here. Okay, so now we see our buildings, and you could always do a, before and after if you want. So that was before, and then we've gone. So we've really cleared those up and brightened them up. Okay. So now we need to bring in another mask. So we're going to come back up here, go back to our local adjustments, import mask, and now we're going to do the sky. So I've noticed that when you have one control point already here and you bring in another one, now they're both highlighted. Just make sure that you click on it so only that new one is highlighted. So then you'll scroll down and now you can see everything zeroed out because now we're on this control point. Okay, so it's just like working with any other control points except it's in a mask format. So now we're going to go back to our brightness and some contrast. And saturation. And structure. I'm not doing much structure because it's the sky. Of course, I don't want it to be really sharp. And then highlights. And midtones. And shadows. So I'm going to bring down. I'm going to make the sky more dramatic. Make the clouds stand out and make that blue a little bit darker. So now we're going to come back up here again. Click on our import mask, and now we'll do the trees. And again, it's got them both highlighted, so I want to make sure only the trees is highlighted. And come down here, and we're going to brighten up those quite a bit. Contrast, saturation, structure. And in this one, I added a little bit of green. And then we'll come down to, I want to bring the highlights down. Midtones all the way down. And the shadows just a hair. Thanks. Yeah, I agree, Pat. I think it really makes it easier, especially with an image like this where you have very distinctive subjects that you really know that you're going to want to target differently. I think it's a great way to do it. So this is where, like, if I wanted to do something else, which I'm going to do another effect on here in Analog Effects. If I wanted to save this as is and send that back to Photoshop, down here at the bottom, you'll see this send as layer. So I'm going to click that. And yep, it's saying layers are created upon closing the plugin. Multiple layers may require more processing time. We're going to send that. So now that is sending it to Photoshop without me having to do anything else. We don't have to actually go back to Photoshop. So now I'm going to switch to Analog Effects. And you'll remember in version 6, I think, 6 or last one, can't remember now, we have this switch to. So we can click our little drop down and then go right to Analog Effects. And it's going to take it back to Photoshop and come back for us. Okay, so now we're in Analog Effects. And I just wanted to, even, this is a nice photo. You know me, I like to try different things and see what we can do. So we're going to do Autochrome. Yep, I will get to the questions in 1 second. So I used that one, and I just wanted to change the frame. So I'm going to use under white this one here that's just a little more narrower all the way around. Okay, so now let's see what took our questions. How different is this from creating the 3 masks and ACR on a raw file? By having the layer masks, that lets us bring them into Nik. I don't think if you create them in raw that they would show up the same way to import them. I haven't tried doing that. I haven't seen anything about doing that because I was looking at what little information I could find out there as far as other videos and stuff to kind of learn this myself. So I'm not sure on that. You would have to try that and see if it works. Yeah, I'm not sure, guys. I haven't tried that. So now we want to go back to Photoshop, but we don't want to just hit apply like we always used to do before. We have choices now because we have the mask. So next to apply, before you hit apply, you want to click this little drop down. And I find the best thing to do is to send it back as a smart object. And I'll show you in a bit. I'm going to try one of the other ones and show you why it's better. So if we send it as a smart object, that will let us come back into Nik and make changes. So they did add the smart object feature in the last version, but it was like a little checkbox down here. Now you can select that when you're saving. So I've done smart object, and I'm going to say apply. Dave said, our guru Pat has, I think, answered the question. Yeah, I tend to agree. She says, I don't think they would transfer masks in RAW as you would have them baked in when you return to Photoshop. Yeah, because they don't show up as masks in Photoshop. They're only masks in Camera Raw. So yeah, I don't think that would work. And that's why I made 3 layers with 3 separate masks for that. Okay, so now we've come back. Okay, so here's our finished project. Here's our smart filter, so I can open this back up. The one thing I have noticed, and this is, I don't know if this is something they'll change in the future. If you come back as a smart editor, because we've used both Viveza and Analog Effects, it only will give you Analog Effects to go back to, not Viveza, which is kind of weird. But that's part of, I think, working with the masks that we were. So if we reopen this, it only brings us back into Analog Effects. So we still don't have the option of changing color effects. Okay, so we're gonna back out of there. you will know when I did that send as layer, here's that layer that I sent. So that is the layer before I did the analog effects. And it tells you right here that was Vesa. But I still can't go back and edit this. This is just a snapshot. So if I came in here after doing analog effects and I say, maybe I don't really like that, I could just turn it off. But this is already like the edited, fully edited. Yeah, like it's like a merged layer. You know how I create merged layers a lot of times? That's kind of what this is. So there's still advantages, obviously, to doing all this. So I would say, just when you're making adjustments and using the masks, make sure they're what you want. And I'll show you some of the other options there as we go along. Okay. The other thing that we can do is we might be able to, if we didn't do the switch, I would have to try it on another project, but if we didn't switch to this and we made this Viveza a smart object, that would probably be, that would come back in, as letting us re-edit it as a smart object. Why are there two versions of Viveza? There aren't. We just have Viveza right here. That's color effects, silver effects, analog, define, sharpen, pre-sharpener, and output sharpener, and these are the HDRs. 2 layers. So this was when it came back in, when I made the smart object, between when I switched, sorry. So when I did the switch from Viveza to Nik, it always has brought it back into Photoshop for you, and then reopens this one. It's just you don't have to physically do that. So yeah, Pat says doing a smart object of the Viveza would, keep that. So I guess if you want to save it as a smart object, don't do the switching, do the manual, come back here as a smart object, and then open your next module. Like I said, I'm still learning this too. So I'm learning along with you guys. So hopefully I get you at least pointed in the right direction with all this. All right. So that's that image. I'm not going to save it because I already have it. All right. So next we're going to do this one. And this one I'm going to do some things just to kind of show you what some of these things do. It may or may not be the result that you really like for today, but just so that you can kind of see what I'm going to do with all this. So this one, I'm not going to make any masks. I'm going to go into Viveza first. And this has already had basic adjustments done to it. This is the barber chair at Eastern States Penitentiary in Philadelphia. It's kind of one of the iconic shots when you go there. All right, so I'm in Viveza, and I'm going to start with a preset. So what I'm going to do with this one, and again, I had to play around to kind of figure out how to do what I wanted to do, is I kind of wanted to make like a spotlight coming down from the skylight. Can't think of the word. So I'm going to start by using this darkening preset, and then we're going to come over to the selective tones. And I'm going to make this even darker. That's good to know it's a barber chair, not something more sinister. Well, they had those other kind of chairs there too. Midtones, I'm going to bring up. Shadows, I want to bring up some. And like I said, this was all a lot of trial and error to get to what I wanted to end up with here. So you just kind of have to play with things and kind of analyze a little bit. Okay, so I want to add a polygonal control point, and in the recording you'll be able to see exactly how I apply this, but that's this third one down here. So we're going to click the polygon control point, and I ran it from like the center of the window kind of down to here, over to about to here, and back up to here, and over there. So now that's my control point. So now I want to make adjustments in this area. So what I found, and I have in the notes 2 steps to do, like first and second, before I do the other adjustments. First, I want to adjust the warmth and the hue. So again, we come down below our control point to get to our settings. So even though these aren't at the top of the list, I found it worked better when I did this part first. And the hue, no, hue is over here. I took hue all the way down because I didn't want to change. I just wanted warmth. I didn't want to change the color so much. Anyway, this is where I ended up. So now I'm going to go and do brightness, contrast, saturation, structure, and then highlights, midtones, shadows. Okay, so I'm getting there. That's the kind of the start of this. So I'm going to switch over because I wanted to add more color into this. Okay, so first we're going to switch over to color effects. And I'm going to use Glamour Glow to kind of soften the edges of this a little bit. So we're going to go into our, I don't want to use a preset, I want to go to my filters and use my Glamour Glow. And I'm going to up the glow a little bit. Shadows, highlights. And then I brought the opacity back just a teensy bit, like 95. All right, so now I'm going to add a filter. I'm going to use the bicolor filter. So again, with the last updates in the last version, we now click on the plus sign to add a filter. And so now I want to utilize that polygonal mask control point that I just did. So for the polygonal here, I'm not going to adjust things here. I want to come down, again, local adjustments, and I'm going to select the import mask, and there's the one I just created, my polygon. And there you go. So now my adjustments are only going to be in that mask. So I went with green, brown 4. The blend, I took all the way up because I wanted it more yellow. I really didn't want the brownish part of it. The vertical shift, I didn't change that too much, just a little bit. And then we're going to bring the opacity up just a hair. And then down here, under here, we're going to do luminance, chrominance, and then feathering. I took all the way up to soften the edges more of this shape. Yeah, that's kind of, Pat, one of the new things is not only can you use Photoshop masks, but you can now use Nik masks in other Nik programs as well. So now I'm going to send this back. Okay, so this one I'm going to show you another way of sending it back that I don't think works really well. So under this little drop down, we have an option of new layer with mask. So you would think that, okay, if I send this back with the mask from Nik that I created in Nik, that I should be able to utilize that mask in Photoshop, but it doesn't work that way. So we're going to select that, but I want you to see what it's going to do. And then we're going to say, and we've got the plugin masks here, so they're both checked, right? That same one I used in both programs. So you want to make sure those are checked. And say apply. Guess I didn't hit it hard enough. Okay, so now we are back here. So now it comes over as a black mask, and I've found you have to invert this for the full effect to show up. Why, I don't know, but it does. And the masks don't show up like a traditional mask here, but if you go under the channels, which I don't know why it's up there, it should be down here. It should be next to layers. There we go. When you go to channels, you can see the masks, but I don't know how to utilize those from here. I can't find anything on it. Like I said, I've watched, there's one guy who did a couple videos for Nik. He did the one when they released it to the affiliates when we first got to see what all this stuff was going to do. And then he did 2 other similar ones, but they don't talk about, it's like, okay, the mask is here, but I don't know how I can utilize that in Photoshop, or if you can. I've tried turning them on and off and everything. I've tried duplicating. I've tried doing all kinds of different things, and I can't make it become an actual mask that I can work with. So hopefully that's something that if I figure it out, I'll let you know. Or if they figure it out, or maybe it's, I don't know if there's a reason to bring them back if you can't utilize them, is kind of what I'm saying. It's still, I'm sure, a work in progress, although they're pretty good about getting things pretty good when they release them. Yeah, Pat said, mystery masks. Control click, let's try that. Control click, nope, that just selects the mask, selects the whole thing. Good idea, done, but that doesn't do it. I've tried that, Debbie, and you can't do that. I've tried, let's see, you can duplicate the channel or delete the channel, but you can't copy the mask in any way. And it will like show you what's masked if I do it like that, but I don't know how I can utilize that in any other way. So maybe control click on the channel. Control click. Yeah. Let's see. I don't know what these control numbers are for, but if I control click, it's not doing anything. It just, because I have it highlighted over there, yeah, it doesn't control. No, it doesn't paste it either. Yeah, we'll have to play with that some more. And if anybody figures it out, let me know. Command Control A, then copy and paste. Let's see. Let's turn that one off. So that's what we were doing. So we turn that in. Control A. That copies the whole thing. If we went over here, Control V. Yeah, it's not pasting it though on a new layer. Nope. That's your homework. Yeah, Dave says that's your homework assignment, guys. If you can figure it out, you let me know. Because I played with that for like an hour and I could not figure out. I tried Googling things and figuring it out. I know, Pat, if anybody figures it out, it'll probably be you. I know, because you're so good with this stuff. But it just the fact that you can even use a control point like that from one program, or one module to another, I think is a pretty cool thing. So even if you can't bring it back and use it in Photoshop, it's still really cool. What's that, dear? Yes. Dave wanted to remind y'all that a reminder, Pat Reck, who most of you know is online, it says P-Rec on here. Pat is lives in Arizona, and she's going to be joining us in September on our Sedona workshop. So she likes to come shoot over there too. So she's going to come along and join us. We have 3 spots left. It was down to 2. Somebody had to cancel due to some family things, but so we have 3 spots. Check out the blog, the website, the newsletter, whatever. The info is everywhere if you're interested in joining us. We have 5 people going, plus Pat and us. So it will be a fun trip. This is my 4th or 5th workshop I've done out there. So, alrighty. So this old barn, Dave said, yeah, there was a couple of people at the beginning who said, hi from Prescott. Maybe we can meet up with you guys while we're out there. We'll have to see what we can arrange. Okay, so this shot, I did my basic editing using Nik HDR to merge 3 shots. I also took out power lines and I replaced the sky because it was a pretty boring sky. Actually, I have the TIFF version here. You can see what the real original looks like, I think. And come on. Okay, so if I go, that was my original image. So it's a pretty ugly sky, pretty ugly image altogether. I did a remove wires with using the remove tool and find distractions, wires and cables. It did a great job with that. Then I did sky replacement. That's one of my skies. And then this barn had a very blue hue to it, which I didn't like. It really was gray. So I copied the barn, selected it, copied it to a separate layer, then did a saturation. Just took the saturation down on the barn. And I clipped that to just the barn because I only wanted that adjustment to affect that layer. And then that's a merge layer. Pat said maybe start with a smart object before you send a Nik. I think I tried that, but I'm not sure. Linda, this isn't one I've done on the trips. This was one we found, I can't remember right now, when I was searching through my folders. Linda Harris is online, and she's been to all of my workshops down here in Tennessee. Several times, in fact. So yeah, I can't remember where this one's even at right now. Actually, I do. I think you have been to this. I think it's the one that was like on Route 2 or 3 that we had. It was like way up on a hill. This is a really zoomed in view. It was like on a corner. We'll have to talk about that. Anyway, back to her. So this is basically a flattened version. This is the JPEG we're going to start with. So we're going to start with silver effects. So again, over here. And you'll notice too, as you use some of these modules, they like the individual modules dock here. One thing, I forgot to mention. If you want to be able to switch between the modules, you definitely want to launch from this panel. Because if you don't launch from here, you won't be able to do the switch. So if I picked silver effects from here, and then want to do something else, it won't have that option to do the switch to. So you want to use this panel if you plan to use more than one. It's probably just a good habit to get into that one, using it all the time. All right, so I'm going to start with, let's go to my favorites. No, I don't want that. I want a preset. So I'm going to use 4.2 intensifier. Just add a lot more drama to the sky and the barn. So here's that original image that you now have a reference. So if you're trying to target an adjustment to a certain color or area, you can see what the original color was. If you don't see it there, it may just be collapsed. So just hit that little arrow and that will open up. So now I'm going to show you how the color masking works. So we're going to go down here to our local adjustments, and we're going to choose this new add a color mask. So you notice that little symbol for the masks is not here because we had no masks created in Photoshop. So that's why that little symbol is not there right now. So we're going to add a color mask. And then I'm going to click the area I want to adjust is the blue sky. So that was one reason too. I wanted to get rid of the blue on this barn because I kept wanting to pick up the barn as well. So I took care of that ahead of time. So now I like to use the sliders over here. You can use them over here. If you don't want to see them over here, right under the selection, if you click that little symbol on the left, it will just show you the control point and get rid of those. I think the sliders over here are easier, but that's my personal choice. You can use them either way. And I want to bring down the structure because I don't really want that as sharp as what that preset made it on the sky. And I want to amplify the whites a little to pop the white in the clouds. So if you wanted to add a little bit of blue back to the sky for some reason, just as an example to show you again what these things can do, we have this selective slider here with the different colors. So if I selected blue, since that's what we're working with, you can then, if I took the selective colorization up, you'll see it will bring in a color. And if you wanted to expand the range of these colors, if you click one side and move it, it selects both sides evenly, but I don't really want to select the magenta side. You can unclick that, unconnect them there, and then you can adjust if needed. So it's a quick way to add some color back to an image. I tried well, what if I picked red? And it doesn't really do anything because there is no red there. So you have to be working with the color that you're targeting. So because the sky was blue, that will let me bring in some blue. It's just an example. Yeah, not that I really want to do that, but just to show you how that works. So if we take that back to 0, we also have down here color filters, which are like filters on your camera. And it won't change the colors, but it changes some of the toning. So if we choose the orange one, you see how that darkened the sky and made it really dramatic. Red even a little more so. Yellow is going to be brighter. Green filter, blue filter is going to blow out the sky. And I kind of like the way that orange one looked. And this is the strength. You could always bring it back just a little if you wanted to. But if you wanted to add more contrast to that same color area, you can do that. So that's how those work. So I kind of like this new color mask. It's not something you'd probably use all the time, but it's definitely something that can, do some cool stuff. So again, I would, at this point, pick a smart object and apply it. So you have the option of coming back in. And there you go. All right. God, it's already 1/4 of. Time's flying. All right, let's close both of these. The one thing I want to show you, when I saved these images that had a mask, when this was the barber chair one, and this was the one I just did, it saved it like in a weird way. For some reason, I don't know why. I've never seen things saved that way before. But I guess if you, and then the file is still fine. If you open it up, you'll still get the full file. But I don't know why it's saving them like that. So if you see that, don't panic. All right. So next we're going to do, I've got 3 more. I don't know if I'll get to all 3. So let's see. All right. So this is an unedited image. This was at Scranton Lace Factory, also down in Pennsylvania. They're renovating and tearing down part of it, making apartments and stuff in some of the buildings. So I don't think you can even access it anymore. So I'm going to start. I'll show you where I started with this one. I did some of this stuff ahead of time. So this was my real original. I had this board sitting here. this piece of wood. So I duplicated my layer. I used generative AI to get rid of that and to get rid of that. Then I did a merge and I did a little skew to straighten out my lines. And then I wanted to darken this down a bit. So I did a hue and saturation adjustment, just masked to that chair. And then I merged my layer again. So this is where we will start with. So I'm going to again use Silver Effects. And we're going to go to actually I'm going to start with that same one. I do use this one a lot. And then we're going to do some structure adjustments over here. So now it's added, you know, all the things that are in that preset. So down here under structure, I wanted to add, oops. Oy vey. Hitting things I shouldn't be hitting. We're going to add some structure. I'm going to bring the highlights structure down. Midtones, leave that there. Shadows, leave that one there. Then I want to add a color mask control point. And you'll see now that mask thing is back because I did have some masks when I was in Photoshop. So we're going to do our color mask, and I'm going to choose kind of over here in this green wall. And then I'm going to adjust this bar. Actually, that's kind of where I want it to be. Actually, I want to move that side a little bit more. Okay. And then I want to do some structure. So this is going to now only affect like this area because that's our mask, is the color mask. So I'm going to add some more structure. I'm going to really crank that up. Amplify blacks. And fine structure. And then I wanted to add a control point over the chair. So we're going to come back up here and use a regular control point. And then I'm going to, excuse me, remember they added in the last version, being able to make this an oval shape. So when you put the cursor here and get the hand, you can move it down and then like this. We can rotate it a little. Kind of like that. And now down here under my control point one, I want to bring the brightness down a little. Just was like too bright there. Add some contrast and some structure. And then we're going to save that as a smart object and apply. There you go. And yes, there are lots of little light flares here, and you can decide if they're from the windows or if they're something else. We did see them in certain areas and didn't in other. I didn't see them, but the camera saw them. So who knows? Because it was a cloudy day when we were there. It wasn't really sunny, but we do have the window here, so it's up to you. Yeah, little spectral things here. All right. This is also from the factory. There was a piano in one area, and somewhere along the line, somebody painted "Help" on the window, which I thought was interesting. So this was also a 3-shot HDR merge. I did it in Nik HDR. I used the preset vignetted. And in the notes, it tells you exactly what I did. I did a little skew and cropping in Photoshop, and I did a little generative expand on the bottom because I cut off the bottom of this chair leg. So we are going to do Control J. And I'm going to make a selection of a few things in here. So we're going to kind of do like we did in the beginning. So I'm going to use my polygonal lasso tool. I want to select this keyboard. And then again, add a layer mask. So now only our keyboard is selected. We're going to name that keyboard. And then we are going to come back here, Control J. I want to add a mask of the windows. So I'm going to go to my rectangular selection tool. Actually, I think I'll stay with the polygonal. So we're going to select this one. And because I already have add to mask up here, I don't have to hold anything down. I can just make another selection. May not be perfect right now, but I want to get through all these projects. And okay, and then we're at a layer mask. We're going to name that Windows. And then I wanted to be able to brighten this area up. First I thought it was a clock, but it's kind of like some kind of a gauge. So let's turn to Control J. And we're just going to select this and add the layer mask. And we'll name that gauge. Okay. Thanks, Pat. We'll see you soon. All right, so we are going to go to our silver effects. And I'm going to start with a preset. Another one that I like a lot is this, oops, they go too fast. Add more silver, it's called. So we're going to start down here with the masks. I'm going to select the keyboard. And I'm going to brighten that up a little bit. So we're going to go brightness, contrast, some structure, and amplify whites, amplify blacks, and some fine structure. And then we're going to go back here, select the windows. Make sure just that one's selected. And I just wanted to bring the brightness down some. And then we're going to select the gauge. And some structure. Amplify whites. And some fine structure. And there we go. So I wanted to make that keyboard really stand out. It already had some nice light here from the built-in light, I guess, was in there. And toned down the windows a little, opened up this a little bit. And you could make as many mask scenarios as you needed for your particular image. And there you go. And you could also obviously have done a color preset. You could have done something in Viveza. I kind of thought it was kind of cool in black and white too. All right. And one more. So I did this image a couple of years ago when I did one of the Nik things, and I thought this would be a good way to kind of see how it worked with the newer things in here, because I had done control points along the flower and stuff. So now that we have that ability to do the oval one, it makes it easier too. So we're going to go into here. We're going to go into color effects. And I went to a preset called Red Rocks. I favorited it so I could find it quicker. And again, it makes, opens up everything that makes up that preset. And there is one for detail extractor, which is right here. So I don't want it to add detail to the background. I really just want that on the flower. So I'm going to use a control point, which is right under this group, and put it over the flower. And then I'm going to, first I'm going to make it an oval. Let's rotate it. And then move it around. That should be good. So what I actually want to do now is I want the detail extractor on the control point, but not the background. So I'm going to invert this control point, and you do that with this little black and white square down here. If you hover over it, it says invert selected local adjustment. So now I can invert it so it's affecting the background, and then I took the opacity down to 0. So now it's not adding that detail extractor to anything but the flower. And then I'm going to switch to Silver Effects. And I'm going to use one of the film types. So this is, this is all that opens over here now. Like I said, they've changed it. So we're going to go in here, and I used this Fuji Neopan. I just was trying some different things, see what I liked. The green I brought back this way, and the yellow. So I'm darkening down those areas, those colors. And then I'm going to add a filter. And one of the new ones in here is Clearview, which is used in other DxO products. It's kind of like what you have in Lightroom as well. So Clearview, it's designed to reduce haze and fog, but sometimes it works well for other purposes as well. So we're going to do that. And then I switched to analog effects. And I chose Color Cast 3. And so I want to utilize that control point over the flower that I used in the first one. So we're going to go up to the top of this and choose our control point 1 from Color Effects. And it's still inverted to the background. So I want to bring down the brightness of the background. So I don't want to go that far, but kind of like that. And then the detail extractor, I also took that back to 0. Or down to 0. So you have to, again, always play around. The contrast. Actually, I did these in the wrong place. I did these down here, and I should be doing them up here because it was the basic adjustments. Or no, that's detail extractor. No, that's fine. Yeah, this is right. So there you have it. And any questions? So Donna says, does Nik have something similar to solo mode in Lightroom? I like to have my panels closed when I'm working on one. It doesn't, well, it doesn't automatically do it. Like if we come into, let's go back into analog effects. So we've got like all these different panels. You can close them with the little arrows. It does not automatically do that. There is no such, it doesn't have the solo mode like Lightroom does. I know what you mean. I like stuff like that too, because it's hard to keep scrolling, especially if you're working like on a laptop or something. But you can choose to close them down and only open them as you need to. Thanks, Colleen. Glad you liked that one. Karen, I've learned so much today. Thank you. Thank you. It's the best you've seen so far. Well, there were a couple I started watching out there. I'm like, okay, I can't listen to this person because they just talk too much. But the ones that were by the guy who was working with DxO were pretty good. Yeah, I have at the end of the notes, if you want all of the filters to be smart objects, don't use switch, because then only that last one is. But if you take it back to Photoshop as a smart object, then you can do each one as smart objects. Just don't do the switch part. Do the traditional, apply it back, like as a smart object, then reopen the next module that you want to use. So. Yeah, it's a lot of new stuff, a lot of stuff to practice with. I know it's going to take a while for me to get used to all of this too. It's very different than the way we've been working, but I really love the fact that you can bring in the Photoshop masks. I think that's really cool. And that new color control point, I think, is really cool too. Alrighty, I think we got it all handled. Thank you, everybody. Don't forget to check out the blog tomorrow. The replay will be up. And don't forget to grab your notes. That's what helps pay for the Zoom and everything. I know some of you already have. I also did, because I wasn't working with any texture today, I made a new set of 6 textures that are included with the notes. Yes, Vicki, I do know you have them. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thanks, Deb. Thanks, Darcy, Bill, everybody. I appreciate you all being here. And we'll talk to you all soon. Take care.